Hello and welcome to the Dash Podcast, episode 94. I'm Mark Mason and I'm joined by my fellow host, Joel Valenzuela. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Excellent. And this week it's just me and Joel rocking it, representing. But we have a very, very special guest, Fernando Gutierrez, who is the Dash Core Group CMO. Welcome back to the podcast, Fernando.
Thank you, Mark. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Right. Yeah, I think this is like your third, fourth time on the podcast, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think the last one was like episode 69 and so much stuff has happened. And I've got so much stuff that I want to ask you. But I think most recently, we had the Dash News website launch. And I know you was a bit apprehensive and I know there was drama around it, but I actually think it's been really, really successful. How do you think the community feedback has been so far? Are you pleased with the response?
Yeah, community feedback has been really good. I'm very pleased with that. It's been a hard project because of a lot of people in the team involved and a contractor that didn't deliver things like they expected. We had to put new resources to repair a few things that were broken or unfinished. But in the end, we were able to launch. Feedback is great. We're still working on it. We're going to be working on it a lot. The previous website was very difficult to manage and update. This one works very well for that. It's still, the setup is complicated because of our security concerns, because we get attacked all the time. So we needed something extremely robust. And this one is, but at the same time, it's extremely easy to set up. To update. So we are working on it almost every day. No, without the almost, we're working on it every day. There are still things that are not working like we want. We'll be updating it much more, adding stuff now that it's we have something that is very functional. We're going to be expanding. We have a lot of plans in the backlog to include more information, make it more friendly for certain users. We'll be working on it much more. And the design, finally, it looks like the new branding. It looks fresh. It's we're quite pleased with it.
I think it's great, and it's. I think in terms of the community response, I haven't really heard anyone say anything negative. They think it looks great. If there's been any criticism, it's just been over some of the details. But as you say, it's been refined as we go on. It's a work in progress. But so far, so good. Was there anything though that wasn't in the website launch that you wanted to be in there? Is it missing anything that you wanted to be in it initially?
There was only one thing that in the end was not working properly, so we took it out, but it's live today, which is OS detection. So when you go to the downloads page, it makes you a suggestion at the top. It's not that important because you have every download down below, but that thing was not working properly. It's working now. Then we still need to repair a few logos that don't show up in a couple pages. And yeah, as you said, in general, feedback has been very good. There's only the discussions that I've seen that were not that were more controversial are more about messaging, which is a great discussion to have. What is Dash? I mean, it's not the same for every one of us, and there are many opinions about how we position ourselves and that kind of stuff. But those discussions are great to have because our messaging is always evolving. What we are showing here is the result of the last few months of internal discussions, but obviously this is the opinion of a few people in or of Dash Core Group, but that doesn't mean that everyone needs to agree with everything because it's a decentralized community and we don't have the same views, all of us. This is the product of certain discussions. I think what we are wording there aligns well with the strategy that Dash Core Group has, but Dash Core Group is by no means everything Dash. There's many other projects doing great things, and we don't all need to agree with everything we do among each other, as long as we all work for the benefit of Dash.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second. Dash does a bunch of things. Just to the crypto crowd that already knows what crypto is, Dash is like cheap payments. It's like a governance coin. It's like a privacy coin. And then now it's going to be some like data platform usability. There's just so many things. So people have a hard time figuring out what Dash is. Now you take it outside of people that don't even know the baseline of like what is Bitcoin kind of thing. They don't really understand it. What is the biggest thing that Dash is, if you were to describe like one person? Of course, it is a bunch of things. It's sound money, it's a payment system, it's like all kinds of things. But what would you say is the biggest selling proposition of Dash that you want the whole world to know about, because most of them will resonate with this one use case?
I think in the end, all the use cases go down to freedom. It's money for people who are free. It's money that comes with no constraints. That lets businesses do certain things, users do certain things. That's the basic common denominator on every use case in Dash. That's why the tagline in the homepage was "Your money, your way." It's you make the decisions. You are the real owner of your money. It's not a guy at a federal central bank somewhere.
Yeah. It seems like the censorship resistant is, again, that's the term that the crypto nerds say, isn't always that fully emphasized, other than that very quick little tagline. Like the fact that no one can shut it down, that there's like some talk about like no chargebacks or, no fees, no waiting on stuff, but there's not really that much messaging about no, it can't be shut down kind of thing. Is because it's just hard to communicate that in a short level, or is that's as far as you gotten so far, and there's going to be messaging tweaks in the future? I mean, what?
Oh, we were trying to get to the basic things that apply to everyone, and not everyone really gets the inner workings of crypto. And for some people, it doesn't matter. I mean, you'll be using. For someone in Venezuela who's just escaping from the Bolivar, they just want something they want to use on a day-to-day basis. For many people, this is not the key thing they focus on. They focus on the usability, on how this solves the problem I have. How it does it, they don't really need to care. So we were looking into that. The future, I would like to expand so we can go deeper on certain verticals. And I mean, crypto people care about this kind of stuff. So we need more content about that. Somewhere which is easy enough to find, but not as easy, so that the user who doesn't really care about this gets lost in crypto bubble.
What I like about the website, though, is I find it quite refreshing, because it seemed for the longest time that all cryptocurrency projects use the same tried and tested formula. Here's the project, here's the tech specs, here's the app download links, and here's a link to the white paper. I don't think you can have one generic tagline that reaches everyone. And I agree with Fernando. Up until now, we have been in this crypto bubble, but Dash is about to go mainstream, and we really want to emphasize that user friendliness. And one thing I thought was fantastic about the website is now it's broken down into different use cases, because not everyone's the same, from individual to businesses to developer to community. What I want to know is, what was the thought process behind that? How did you come to that conclusion? Because I think that's fantastic, and I think that's what's needed, and it actually makes our website different to other projects. So I'm guessing that was the intended purpose all along.
The thought process, I mean, we discussed a lot internally. The website project started long ago, but a lot of it has been just discussing among us how we want to do this, because the previous website and others we had before, the information structure, as you said, was very standard. But in previous iterations, we had things like merchants, because people realize, okay, the merchant may need certain things very specific to him that others don't care. So that seed was there, and this structure is not that unusual. Many projects, maybe even outside of crypto, or companies have different audiences, and you segment you go to your bank and you'll see businesses and individuals, because usually the services they provide to businesses are different than to individuals. So in the end, it's a well-known thing. When you have different audiences, the message is not going to be the same. Ideally, you would send them directly to the experience they need to have. That's not always possible, because you don't always know who they are. but that's why we assume most of the users that visit the website, that the biggest number would be individuals. That's why the homepage looks more like the individual's experience, and we try to send you as fast as possible to the relevant one. But yeah, it was about the feedback we're always getting is people don't really find what they are looking for at the current website because everything is mixed. And as we advance, we recognize that there are very different use cases. The last one that you've mentioned, and when you said there were things that you wanted to launch in the beginning that are not there yet, there are a few more, but basically in the developers vertical, because that's a group of users that we were not really targeting right now. We will target with Evolution. There were a few things we had prepared, but because the software was not yet open source and the documentation is not yet released, we couldn't make the developers page a bit deeper with some more richness in content. We'll do when things get open source and things are released by the end of the month, I believe. And then when we launch Evolution, there will be new content there. But it was recognizing that not everyone is the same. Dash is many things for different people. And as the project gets more complex, there is no way you can just have everything together and expect people to find what they are looking for. Menus get too complex.
Yeah, so when we're talking about all this, do you have any data you're tracking as far as user flow? So, for example, this is all stuff that I don't, it's outside of my professional experience, which is why I'm kind of curious about it. Like, do you track how long people spend on the homepage, how many click-throughs you get, how many people click off the page after they get to it, and like basically metrics to be able to see how effective this is in getting people exactly where they want, in terms of like what's the percentage of people that click on the website that then click on an individual subpage and then say go register at an exchange from that, or say download the wallet or something like that. So you'd be able to track the conversion rate to end users. Do you have any kind of data that you're tracking about that?
Yes, we are using analytics to track all that kind of all those things. In the old website, we also had it, but we were not really very active on that for two reasons. First, we don't have that many resources, and properly analyzing takes time. And also, we couldn't act on that information because we couldn't make changes. So, okay, I see this page is not working, but changing it is such a huge deal that in the end, it got stale. Now that we can act on the information, we are starting to track things. The website has been live only for a week, so there's still not enough information. We are still tweaking things and touching things that are not working properly. Then we leave things. We'll accumulate information, analyze what we get. The idea is that people don't need to click around too much to get where they want, but that they act on certain things.
So are there any industry standard kind of metrics that you kind of have in mind? For example, I used to do political canvassing and door knocking and things, and based on, for example, you'd be able to tell how good of a rate it was of what's the percentage chance that when you try to knock on someone's door, they will actually answer the door, and then of like what percentage of the people that answer will actually give you a response. And for example, like a 20% response rate of people you talk to, like 20% of them actually give you what you want, answer your questions, is pretty high by industry standards. So do you have that kind of data accessible? I mean, obviously download, like if you go to say PayPal, the PayPal website, probably a lot more people are knowing what they're going to go get into. But then cryptocurrency is different. Do you have any relative benchmarks?
There is a lot of available information out there. The thing is, outside of some basic things, I mean, you need to have a bounce rate in acceptable means that the previous website didn't, or the time they spend in the website. I mean, if it's only a few seconds, it's obviously not working. Then if we're talking longer time, you also need to analyze that, see if it's because they are lost or because they are entertained, enjoying something you're providing them.
Well, at least if they're lost, they're stubborn.
Yeah. But yeah, there are some metrics, but mostly I think we need to define certain goals for every audience and then track how we improve those, because it's very difficult to compare things. Also, many times you are looking into something and you realize, going deeper, that the explanation is not what you thought. So you really need to look into it before making rash decisions. In the past, for example, we found huge interest from Iran in Dash by accident, because we saw the traffic spiking, and it turned out something that was supposed to be done for the UK was being shown in Iran, because they use a VPN to browse sometimes, and then Google would identify. I mean, when you go deep into rabbit hole, you discover very interesting things. So yeah, there are metrics. We also need to consider that we don't really sell anything in the website except downloads, but you don't, even some of those are not happening in our website. We have then information at the Google Play Store or the Apple iTunes Store about the downloads in our wallets, but we also send people to other wallets, so we don't know how that ends. We can know that they click on Edge Wallet, and that's great. And if we are sending people to Edge Wallet, then we need to analyze why they choose the Edge instead of ours. But if they download a wallet to get that, that's good with me. If they go to an exchange, but then we don't know if they buy that. Maybe they say, oh, I need to go to Binance to buy something else, and they click on that link. Information. Yeah. Because we don't close the experience. Some things will always be outside of our purview, but we can track many things, and we will define goals for certain things and then optimize for that. But again, maybe people clicking to an exchange is not the perfect measure, because maybe they don't buy that. We don't have the full view. It's not a closed experience like PayPal, like you mentioned.
I feel marketing a little bit impatient on this line of questioning, but before we move off that, do you have any conversations with linked partners to where, say, if Binance gets a bunch of people signing up from Dash.org, they know where it came from and tell you about it, or say Uphold or whatever?
Not yet. I'd like that, but I know people are very private with these kind of things. Some exchanges have
affiliate links, right?
Referrals, and affiliate links, but we are not using those because we don't want. I mean, it's a discussion to have, but we haven't. Up until now, we always said no referrals, no anything, so we don't get a cut from anything, and we are impartial. Maybe we need to reconsider that and say, hey, if an exchange offers a cut on anything, that will give us some information, and then it gives some revenue. We haven't done it yet because, well, it's philosophical almost. I mean, Dasher Group, it's something that gets funded by the network, and it's neutral, and it doesn't get money from anyone that it's not the network. It's an interesting discussion to have. As for information, sometimes some partners have shared in the past certain things, but it's always very intense in work to get information, because it's their competitive data. They don't want anyone to know, and they know that if it comes to us, it's out. So sometimes they share something like Creep, they share some sales numbers, Uphold shares some information about Dash purchases, and hopefully we get some of that, but I would not be super optimistic, because I also understand they are private businesses with their own needs, and also they need to protect information from the users, and we'll try to get as much as possible to complete the picture. But also there are tons of exchanges, and there will be very different use cases, very different cases in terms of what they provide and what they don't.
It's a good line of questioning, but I sympathize with you a little bit, because I know how difficult it is in terms of analytics, because what people need to appreciate is, although like Google Analytics seems to be like the standards of measuring bounce rate and where people are coming from, a lot of people now are more security focused. So if they don't have a Google account or they're using something else, you can't pull a lot of that information about, their gender, background. So a lot of things are hidden. But there are things you can do to help you. One of the cool things that you can do is like the new website it's based on website, right? Sorry, on WordPress, right? So you can get plugins that show heat maps. So it will show you where people actually click on the page, which is really interesting. So on each page, you can see how people are interpreting the information and where they're looking like first, and then where they're clicking. So you can see the hotspots. That could tell you a lot of information, but yeah, unfortunately, it's really hard to interpret it like every single bit of data.
One quick thing on that. It's WordPress, but it's a hidden WordPress in a hidden server in the background. And then we have a script that downloads the HTML and publishes that. So not everything that works for WordPress will work because we are not publishing WordPress. A dynamic site was too dangerous. It can be attacked easier, so we only publish static HTML. So not everything that will work for WordPress work in this case, but there are tools to do that kind of stuff. We are testing things now, see what works better, what doesn't. But again, it's been live for a week. We need to find our pace. Also, we don't have that many resources internally to take care of everything, so we need to find an equilibrium between the things we would like to do and what we can realistically do. Because we could have 10 people working for the website, and there would be tasks to do for everyone, but we don't have that. So we need to be realistic and do pick the low-hanging fruit and then climb up a bit more as we can. But we don't have dedicated resources for this, and we will probably not have them in the very short term. So we need to be conscious also of what we can do. I know there are many things that we should do. We'll do as much as possible, but we don't have that kind of, we don't have a web team.
Yeah. Well, although, it's still early days and you're still refining and tweaking a little bit, we did have a weekly meeting earlier in the week, and hopefully you won't mind me saying it, otherwise you can elbow me afterwards. I believe Joel was actually asking you about this in the meeting, and I thought it was really good, and I think this would be really interesting for people watching to learn, because although they're probably still absorbing all the information and pages on the new website, I think Joel asked a line of questioning, like, in the future, could you create landing pages for specific topics? Like, we know the biz dev team have strategic value proposition use cases, like the cannabis industry, for example. So you could create tailored pages around that. So while now you're refining the messages and tweaking and getting to a place where you're happy, in the future, in terms of strategic partners and use cases, you can use this to your advantage, because the benefit you have with this website we didn't before is now that you have a lot more flexibility, right?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, we've already started talking with a couple big partners, those that we all know, to work on putting some of their content and their story in the website, because those are success stories that explain very well why DAS is great. So we need to have them there, and we need to expand on that and then send people there. And in certain occasions, it makes more sense to send people directly there, not to the homepage. So yeah, we'll be working on that kind of things in the next few weeks, months. We'll be expanding all the time. We have many great stories to tell around the DAS community. So hopefully we can tell them all, or at least a lot of them, and help surface that and also explain why DAS is great.
Excellent. Right, let's switch gears, because we've got loads of topics to talk about. And the website, as good as it is, there's lots of people in the community excited right now, because there's a lot of talk about the Trust Protectors election upcoming. So they've seen the forums, they've seen the list of candidates that have put themselves forward. But what's to come now is the website to vote, right? So is there any updates that you can give us on that?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. That's ready as of today. It's completely functional. Nathan Marley will be doing a post in the blog later today. He was working on it a couple of hours ago. It was almost finished, but he needed to coordinate something with DashWatch. But it's in a subdomain in dash.org. The post will explain a bit more the technology and all that, but also we are open sourcing the software, so people can examine it if they want. And Nathan will be explaining the different decisions he made. It's quite a simple process. Basically, you go to this page, which will be in the dash.org domain in a subdomain. You see a list of the candidates. You click on all those you want to vote on, because as you know, you can vote on as many as you want. It's an approval voting. Then you click and accept. It creates a text string for you. You copy that. You go to the wallet where you have the Masternode, be your core wallet or Trezor or whatever. You go to sign a message. Depending on what wallet you're using, it's in different place. You paste that text string and select the address from your Masternode. You click in sign. You get a key. You copy that. You paste it in the voting website. Click vote, and you're done. It's very simple. We'll be doing a video probably early. If it's live today, it will be up a video and some instructions early in the next few days. But it's very, very easy for anyone who's worked with a wallet and know how. I mean, it's just signing a message. It's pretty simple. Then in the back end, the Dashwatch people can check the votes that have been created, how the tally the votes and see the results and everything. And I think that's all. It's pretty simple. Only your last vote counts. So if you want to change during the month, you can do that. The votes that will count are the ones that are in the network at March 31st and come from masternodes that are live at that time. So if you take down your node on next week and you vote today, your vote is not going to count. And if you vote 10 times during the month, only the last one is going to count. So it's pretty simple. I mean, people will need to get used. It's a bit time consuming if you have a lot of nodes, but if you have a lot of nodes, you should be putting time to Dash because you are really invested. So
lose all the investment, huh? Yeah. But oddly enough, I'm more interested in the software than in the actual thing that it's being used for. So, I mean, no, it's like everyone's like, oh, the trust, but how are they getting elected? All this stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever. This voting website, because historically, governance questions have been pretty much people kind of talk about, and if they're really important, someone puts up 5 Dash and just throws up a proposal, and then in like 1 or 2 cases, like pretty much when Evan puts it out to ask if we should go big block or not, people pay attention and it's like a big thing. And then other times, like if it's, I don't know, there's been a lot of these governance question type thingies that people have just reacted with hostility towards having them in the treasury cycle. They're like, why am I looking at this? Downvote, you lose your money. Like, not even whether or not they agree or disagree, just I don't want to see this here. So I'm kind of interested in seeing something where you can actually poll the network on a more frequent basis without having to, spam up the whole treasury system. And then like, so if this is open source, it could be easily integrated into a site like, say, Dash Nexus, right? As a special additional part, right?
Yeah, the only thing with this is that we need masternodes to get involved. And sometimes we see it every month. I mean, around 1,000 masternodes vote. And we have almost 4,500 right now. So the problem is apathy, not the lack of tools. But yeah, this tool will be easy to integrate anyway. We're going to be using it also for Dash Ventures elections pretty soon. You just need to run another instance, change the list of candidates. I'm sure someone will come with improvements, and that's great because it's open source, and I'm sure it can be improved. It's quite solid. It's been tested a lot because elections are a serious thing. But people will come with improvements. They can implement it somewhere else. For the details, I defer to Nathan's post that will be live today in the blog, sometime today. Yeah, it's the software is quite interesting because you are right. The treasury was not designed for decision proposals, and it only has a very specific way of setting up things. So it's complicated. You need to spend money. Hopefully, this can be used for more things in the future.
Yeah, that's a interesting point about apathy. I think there's definitely a few different elements involved in that. Some of it is just it's too difficult to vote for some people. Some people just don't want to boot up the DMT or whatever. They don't want to go and do this. They don't want to sign things, and they more importantly, they don't like they're having to review very complex proposals where people say, hey, I got all this, I'm going to get this much money, I'm going to do this. You have to be like, oh, is this guy trustworthy? First off. Second, does he know what he's talking about in terms of Dash? Third, is he like an expert in his field? Fourth, what are the safeguards? Well, like you have to basically be as much of an expert as the proposal owner for each proposal. It's like just I don't want to do it, and I don't want to vote. And also, I think that there's a lot. So there's a barrier entry. There's like it's too difficult to actually make a smart decision voting. And then the third thing partially is just the general apathy, which is, I mean, think about how people invest in crypto. They just kind of believe in crypto and then they just buy a bunch of coins and just they have big heavy shitcoin bags and just they throw money at this and that and they I like this one, it's a good privacy coin, I'm going to throw some into this many privacy coins. Some people are like, I'm going to throw 1,000, I'm going to buy 1,000 Dash or 5,000 Dash or something insane like that, and just going to buy it and then I'm going to get recurring income from it. I'll just see what happens, and they just register and they're good. And just looking at the stats, for example, with the upgrade, when it's like, all right, we're going to do a big upgrade, you're going to need to change this, you're going to need to register your nodes, and just I see a lot of people are still on the old version. I'm like, and then after like the dip lock-in the lock-in window, and just like a bunch of people just got kicked off, and then they're all like, oh, what do I do? Aren't you paying attention? This is a lot of money. What are you talking about? It's sort of a sign of the times where people just say, oh, Litecoin's doing pretty good today. And they're like, well, who's using it? It's silver, Bitcoin's gold. Who cares? It's doing well. That kind of like attitude, I think in the future, there's going to be a lot of people where you won't have these like massive pumps out of nowhere that make no sense. And people are going to be, those gains, like the 10% gains is not just going to be, you sneeze, you go to the bathroom, you come back, you have 10% gains. Like it's going to be so hard to get that. So people are going to pay like laser close attention to their investments. I think this will change over time.
I agree. And there's also another reason, I believe, and is that despite what many people think, the Masternode layer is very fragmented. The average Masternode owner probably has one node, two nodes, and then some of them, it's like when you vote on elections, you are not going to make a difference. So why bother? As you said, it's not easy. You need to fire up maybe the computer where you have your wallets, or open the tools. People have very different setups, but they should be secure and they should not be easy. So why bother if you are not going to make a difference? So many people, I think, they more or less agree with what's happening. So I won't vote. I'm not going to change anything. So it's a combination of factors. Hopefully, with time, we make it easier. With time, proposals and the information, the standards for proposals get refined. And as you said, people will care more about the return on, or about their investments. And as you said, in the past, people have earned a lot of money just with the volatility in the market. So Masternode rewards are not such a huge thing. And yeah, when DIP3 activated, 500 nodes disappeared because they were not updated. And many of them are still in very old versions. And
that's 500,000 Dash.
Yeah, and they don't get, I think it was a bit less than 500, but whatever. I mean, 400, I haven't checked the numbers lately, but if you go to Dash Ninja, you see a lot of people in very old versions, but the servers are live. So they're paying for hosting. They set that up and they forgot. And they know they have it. They don't check their rewards. So they don't care. And the rewards is, you are getting paid to do some work. And now you are not getting paid, but because percentually it's not such a huge deal when the market is going up super fast, then people don't, as you said, they don't really bother. With time, that will autocorrect, I guess.
Yeah, there's also it's something interesting, which gives me opportunity to talk about something in the news. Well, CrowdNode everyone's favorite. I don't know if it's everyone's favorite, but one of the more prominent fractional Masternode companies where you can basically put in as little as 1 Dash and you get that minus 15% fee, that percentage of master rewards. So they've implemented a voting mechanism now where now you can vote for treasury proposals. And like the Dash network, they have the usual yes, no, abstain kind of vote, but then they also have a do nothing option, and they also have a delegate option. Whereas if you delegate, so if 2/3 of a node's worth of holders delegate and 1/3 decides to vote, then the whole node, that 1/3, or it could just be like 1%. It could be one person with 1 Dash sways a whole masternode to vote a certain way because everyone else just delegated, which is the default option. And so the guy who's active and voting for stuff, if everyone else decides to give him that power by just saying, delegate, you can go do that. I think that that's a great idea. We'll have to see how it plays out, honestly. But I think that's a great idea. And I honestly think that if there would be a way to do something like that, again, we're talking about evolutionary governance here, getting better and better and over time. If there would be a way to do that with the Dash treasury itself, like protocol level, that would be pretty amazing, to where you could designate a few people to where if your node doesn't vote that month, their votes get to count for it. Or you could just pick one by random, or there's a bunch of different opportunities, but it'd be great that if it, like, I have had this happen before in a non-protocol level way, where it's like 2 days before the voting deadline, I get some messages. I've been a bad master owner this month. How should I vote? What should I vote for? And I just, I was like, well, I'll give my most honest opinions, but it's ultimately up to you. But like, people are already trying to do that. They're like, hey, what's going on, guys? Sorry, I'm late. I didn't pay attention all month. All vacation with the kids or whatever, because life gets in the way. Dash isn't everyone's life. Not everyone is stay dashy, right? Not everyone stays dashy all the time. Sometimes they have like intermittent dashy periods. And when they're off dashy mode, they don't pay attention and they already delegate. So I don't know. What do you think of that? Would you like to see a delegate option protocol level?
Yeah, absolutely. And anything that increases participation, I think is good. On the other hand, delegation also worries me a little, that too many people will delegate because they will get lazy, and then only 3 people will get to make the decisions. I think one of the beauties of crypto is the decentralization. So I'd like us to keep some of that. So it's a difficult equilibrium. I want people to get involved, but I also understand they have lives. So I think we'll see a lot of things around that in the future. I know many developers in the team have a lot of ideas. Some of them have discussed, also Jeff from Dash Nexus has a lot of ideas. They've discussed things for the future, but there are, governance right now works maybe 80% right. It's
pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's not perfect, but there are things that are more urgent to solve, because if not, we end up with a perfect system that nobody uses because no one cares. So we need to, and the resources are limited, so we need to put them toward the product, the user-facing, developer-facing stuff, and make do with what we have, which is pretty good already. And it's let us come where we are, and it will let us go much farther in the future. So that's why we are not in the team pushing for big governance changes right now, because it's good enough for what we need now, although it's not by any means perfect.
Yeah, so that's another thing about, just to address the whole 3 people voting thing. Well, without delegation, it's still a relative much smaller number. Now, that's a good part of like the voting threshold, that you have to get at least 10%. So then you can't have like 12 people voting, no one else caring, and all of a sudden you get network approval and just say, I have a mandate from the network, they voted. It's like, well, 4 people voted. Come on.
Right, Fernando. I've got a dashy question for you.
Cool.
So with regard to the Trust Protectors election, are you happy with the caliber of candidates that have submitted it? Or have you seen someone being like, oh no, why is that guy applied? Oh God, no.
Yeah,
it's all gone wrong.
Yeah, of course, this is a very delicate question to answer, but as long as you don't name names, you should be
Yeah,
pretty
no,
safe.
I'm happy. There's only one jerk, Mark Mason or something like that. But besides that, everyone is really cool. No, it's this is a serious question. I'm really happy. My biggest worry was we'll only have 3 candidates because no one really understands these or know what this is for. So in the end, having, I think it's 26, and most of them I know. There are a couple that I haven't really interacted. So I'm pretty happy. I think we'll have a very interesting next few weeks. One thing I'd like to insist a little is what a protector is, because I've seen some discussions. I think this is something very important. I've seen discussions about I want to make this for DAS or wherever. Protector, the protector is a role defined in the law, in the trust laws. It's a figure that trusts have. They basically overview the trustee, who is like the lawyer that executes the day-to-day stuff in a trust, and they can fire him. They can instruct him to do certain things, and because the trust is the owner of a DAS core group, the trustee can fire anyone in the board of DAS core group. The trustee is gonna do only the things that the beneficiaries, which is the Masternode owners, instruct, because Masternode owners are very murky thing. Then the protectors need to make sure that what the trustee does is what the beneficiaries want. So they are figuring in the middle. They overview that the agreements he executes, because he's the one who represents the trust in the shareholder meeting of the DAS core group, if you want to call it like that. So he needs to do what the beneficiaries say, and the protectors will make sure that's the case. So in the end, because the beneficiaries don't speak easily, because this is the Masternode owners, the protectors need to be interpreting them, maybe making proposals, maybe talking with a lot of people. In the end, they have that, but they act as a group. They are 6. They need to have a majority to make any decision. They may decide, or they may interpret that Masternodes want this, so we will tell that to the trustee, so he executes that. Masternode owners want to fire Fernando, and protectors agree on that. So they tell the trustee, and the trustee needs to fire me. That's a direct order from the beneficiaries, that it's according to what the trust bylaws say. That doesn't mean that they are involved in day-to-day. We're gonna, obviously, DAS core group wants to have a very good relation with its owner, which is the trust, which is the Masternode owner. So we will be meeting with them. We will be providing information. We want to, a very good relation. But this is like the shareholders of a company, the Masternodes, and in this case, the protectors represent them. A shareholder doesn't get into day-to-day decisions. What they do is, when there's a meeting, they vote on, hey, I don't like how these guys are doing. Let's fire them, and let's bring in someone with a different plan. Obviously, because the managers or people in the board of the DAS core group want to avoid getting fired, they will listen to what the owner is saying. So it's not closed, though, and we will be talking a lot, because also we've always wanted to know what Masternode owners want. But it's not a day-to-day thing. It's something to keep an eye on what DAS core group is doing, and if there's a need for an intervention, then they do it. But it's not like every day the protectors are gonna be voting on every decision DAS core group makes. It's a role for someone who really loves DAS, because in case and knows about DAS, because in case they are needed, they're gonna need to make very strong decisions and very important ones, because you may completely steer the direction of the project if you replace people.
It's gonna be interesting. It's funny because right now the governance tool is just really hard and blunt, and that's why, like, there is a little bit. It's not quite as hard and blunt as, say, Bitcoin's governance system, which is you just go with it, or you fork off. You literally just split off.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like literally 1 or 2. It's at least with Dash, you can put a treasury proposal vote to just say, we want this or not, or you can defund a certain proposal, or things like there's stuff you can do. It's a little bit more blunt. But whereas before, it's like you're upset with something with the core team, you can just like take away their money and just kind of, you could tell them why, but you kind of leave them to guess. Well, now you can vote to choose these 6 people that then when you vote again, then they choose another person. And then, so when you vote, then these 6 people tell the one person to do something with the guy in this group, so you don't have to actually defund. It's a very like roundabout, bizarre way to a lot of people. And I think a lot of the trust protector candidates may not, they may not really, I mean, maybe I'm making a huge assumption here, but I'm making an assumption that some of them don't know how passive their role will be in the day-to-day of Dash, or at least maybe they're going to try to interpret their role more broadly against the actual role. Who knows? It'd be interesting to see.
That's possible. You're right that this is just another tool in the hands. I'm sorry. This is just another tool in the hands of masternodes. So they don't need to just defund or not, because that's a very hard tool. It's a huge hammer. So this way you have another tool, but there's no perfect. I mean, there's no perfect system. This is just okay. We have the nuclear option, which is defund. Then we have the conventional war, which is okay. You invade the board and you replace people. But it's still a drastic thing. In the end, it's obviously better if we all agree on things and we behave. And but yeah, it gives more tools, because that core group, it's already a quite decent structure in how it works. So maybe the problem is just 1 people or 2 people or certain things. And then there are tools to correct that without killing the whole organization. But then at the same time, if for whatever reason protectors go crazy and start issuing orders that are not really in accordance with what the beneficiaries want or whatever, I mean, they can fire the board and whatever. But I mean, the structure below is not, they are not slaves. They can also leave and start something else, because the system in the end is decentralized. So Dash Group is a good structure to achieve certain things, but it's not everything. So even if everything went to hell, I mean, developers are still there and they don't have to work for this Dash group, and someone creates a new organization and they keep taking care of that. The beauty of the system is that
DDC, the Dash Developer Collective.
Yeah.
So I'm already coming up with branding just in case you get some rogue trust protectors or like everyone guys except for the developers.
So the good thing is that every layer is important, but not as important as the project can't go on without it. So whatever happens, everything is okay, because the basics are in the blockchain, and that's what counts. Dash Group is just a legal entity, so we can do certain things in a more convenient way, because the real world doesn't understand blockchain and DAOs and decentralized organizations and whatever. So in the end, sometimes you need a legal entity, and it's just that. But reality is the core thing, the important thing in Dash is the protocol, and the masternodes voting there. So all the other stuff, it's important. But going back to topic, yeah, really happy with how many people have stepped up. I think candidates are great. I see a lot of people that if need to make a hard decision at a certain time, I know they will look for the best interest of Dash, which in the end is the most important thing, that they have huge conflict of interest to act in a certain way or another way. So people who really care about Dash and will make the best decision for Dash, at least what they think is the best decision for Dash, because no one really knows. I mean, we can disagree on certain things, but as long as people are acting for what they think is the best course of action for Dash to be widely used cryptocurrency, I think will be good. And again, it's 6 people needing to act as a group. So even if someone goes crazy, he doesn't have individual power. The good thing is, I mean, you still need to convince your peers to do certain things. And this is a quorum of protectors. It's like a quorum of masternodes. The chances of a rogue actor controlling a quorum of masternodes are almost zero, depending on how you do it. In this case, it's the same. The chances of bad people controlling this quorum of protectors are very, very little. So it's a very robust system, I think. But again, the important thing is the blockchain and the protocol.
I'm really happy that you spoke about the actual role itself, because I do agree as well. It appears initially some people misunderstood the role. They'll treat like a job interview, like, oh, I can do this for strategy, I can help Dash Core Group in this way, when you hit the nail on the head. Really, the trust protectors are representatives of the Masternode network itself. Me personally, I'm very happy that the trust protector election is happening first before Dash Ventures, because I think the Dash Ventures election is going to be even more important, and that's going to be more of a job interview, because you want to make sure you get the right people elected in that position. So that for me is much more important. But Fernando, we have a question in the live chat from Forrest, which is asking, will the run-in vote tally for trust protectors be public before the final voting deadline?
Yes, Dash Watch is gonna be publishing tallies. I don't know exactly what frequency. I'm not sure if daily or every couple of days, but as far as I know, they will be publishing a tally.
Excellent, fantastic. So, like, you must be very happy because you've been working, because your background is legal, right? And you've been working on.
Well, partially. I got trained as a lawyer, and I had 2 degrees in business and law, and then I did some computer science on the side. But I never worked as a lawyer. However, because when the project was open source, we were all working for free. I was the closest thing we had to a lawyer. So many of these things ended up falling on me, legal stuff. But I haven't really been I've worked around law a lot. I had my businesses I used to prepare my things, but for the important stuff, I always hired a lawyer. However, and that's what we've done in this case. In any case, Ryan also has a huge role in all this legal work. Glenn is also involved, sometimes Robert, and then legal firms. So yeah, I have some legal background, but not really. I've been registered as a lawyer for a lot of time because it was convenient for me when I lived in Spain to be registered, but never worked for third parties. But again, I was the closest thing we could afford to a lawyer, so I did a lot of things in the early days.
Excellent. Well, I'm just happy that we've got enough people come forward. I think there's about like 24 people around that, and that was my fear, that only 6 or 10 people would put their names forward. But I just, from my personal point of view, I'm really, really happy with some of the people's names put forward. And even though I've, on the very last day, due to peer pressure from lots of people, I put my name forward because that was part of the reason some people were saying as well. And I think you're right. The people that we elect obviously have to understand Dash, but they have to be a team player. And the decisions really that they're going to be discussing are those that are put forward from the Masternode network. And yeah, I think this is really, really interesting times, and I promise you, if I do get elected, we'll stay friends. Okay, like, it won't change. Things won't change.
No, I'm happy.
Elected.
And if at some, everyone, or at least I speak for myself, but I think I speak for most of the people in the team. If at some point we have to go, we have to go. It's okay. And if at some point people think things are not going the right way, we need to make changes, and that's how the system is designed. So, but yeah, if I need to get fired by someone, I'm happy if it's some of the people in there. I mean, people I respect, I know that they will not do it lightly, so that's completely fine.
Excellent.
I'll send you a present to your house anyway.
Yeah,
but it's because it's a birthday, not because.
yeah.
But
I think
it'd be like, hello, my name is Fernando Gutierrez. You killed my job. Prepared to die.
Oh, what have I started? Oh god. Yeah. And
one more thing, going back to the role, as I said, and you also said it's a passive role in terms of you need to be there if you are needed. You are like insurance, and day to day you don't need to do anything, but we'll have a running relation with protectors. We want them. I mean, they're going to be representing the masternodes. They are the owners, and we want to keep them informed. Like we will try to keep informed masternodes, and with our quarterly calls, the monthly QAs, and all the updates we post. But obviously, this is a group that we also want to interact a lot with and share information. So in case they need to make a decision, they have all the information at hand. So it's not that they just need to disappear, and in case they are needed, we'll call them. We'll have a relation with them. We'll set periodic meetings and things like that, so they have information. But yeah, it's insurance. It's insurance for the masternode owners in case something needs to be done.
So regarding this extra information and communication, obviously just going to the possible negatives, do you see a risk of someone malicious who plays nice to get into the role and then doesn't use the role for anything other than to get that information and then abuse it in some way, either by using it for a competing project or using it to publicly harass and shame the core group or something like that? Is that an attack vector, or are you not worried about it? Or,
I don't think so. Not really worried, because we are already very public with, yeah, there are things that we don't public because they are still ongoing and they are private for certain reasons. But in general, we don't use information that is really crazy to put out. And if there's something that really needs to be kept secret, it will be kept secret. We are not going to be pushing everything out like we don't do now. If we have an ongoing conversation with someone that needs to be kept secret, we keep it secret even inside the team. Only the people who need to be in that discussion will know about it, because it can harm the discussion, and then we all get harmed by extension. So I'm not really worried about that. Yeah, because the protectors have a title in the Dash ecosystem, and they represent masternode owners and all that. If someone goes crazy around it and tries to harm the project, that looks very bad, obviously. So that's why I think people need to vote with their head, and hey, vote for people you really. I don't want to tell people how to vote, but if you understand what the role is, you need people who really know the project, have been around, and they are always going to act in the best interest of the network, which is what this is for. I don't see real risks of with protectors. I'm pretty confident with this setup.
Yeah, I'm more concerned with the Dash Ventures one, but we got to get through this one first.
Yeah, but Dash Ventures, you're right. It's a more professional role, because they will be deciding on investments. So that one is not that much representation. It's more of a job. You need to be making decisions, and ideally, it would be people that have some investing experience. It's not someone who has never managed other people's money. So because you're going to be making decisions about how you allocate capital, how you track that, how you help those businesses or whatever. That's a complete different beast to this one. That one will come soon.
Well, for that one, we basically, for all the roles, we need Ryan in as many of them as we can. So we have Ryan Taylor run, and then we have one of his good ASU friends, Taylor Ryan, just put a wig on and put him in there too.
I think Ryan is gonna in the protector role. There's not gonna be Dash Core Group people, because it doesn't make sense to overview Dash Core Group people with Dash Core Group.
Yes, of course.
And for Dash Ventures, I think he's gonna stay the first year just to ensure that the transition is good, because there's gonna be also some lawyers that manage this in that kind of board, and he's gonna stay around to ensure that the entrant managers get how everything is done and all that. But after that, he's also moving on, because we need to develop different entities in the ecosystem so it's robust. If everything depends on the same people, same organizations, we are weak. We need decentralization. So in the future, this Dash Venture should be completely independent from Dash Core Group, and should be completely independent from Dash News and all the other organizations we have.
Yeah, new beginnings. It's exciting times, because it hasn't been done before. So it's going to be a learning curve, like everything. There's going to be a learning process, and there's going to be hiccups along the way, but it's only going to make us stronger along the way. Now,
it's only going to be like 3 to 5 years until Decred does it and say they did it first.
Crypto journalists, right? You just can't trust these crypto publications of anything these days. I despise them all.
Well, in their defense, we also have to admit that crypto journalism is really difficult because we are talking projects doing really complicated things with a lot of people pushing information that is not always accurate because they have conflicts of interest or they are invested or whatever. So if you are a journalist in crypto, following what 20, 30, 40 projects are doing, getting information that is not always accurate, and then writing every day is not an easy task. So I agree that sometimes they suck, but
let's be honest too. I like to think of the things in market incentives, and what's the incentive to get really good and solid information if you exaggerate something sensationalistically and then you don't get called on it, or someone says, "Oh, you're wrong." You're like, next article. No one cares. Or if you get a really good story, to a really in-depth takedown of something, and then people just like the markets don't react. People don't forget. Just no one cares. Someone might write you an angry tweet, but then it's like, who cares?
Yeah, well, that's a problem of journalism in general. I mean, media lives of page views and advertising. So you need traffic. You need a cheap content that gets a lot of traffic. Good content is expensive to make, and then people also are lazy. We all want to. I mean, we all live in an echo chamber, and we want to read what we want to read. So good journalism in every in every country and every vertical or industry is really difficult to get because it's very expensive to do, and it's not as profitable as link bait, 2-paragraph post surrounded by ads.
Yeah, if only there was like a model for funding like a journalistic service that didn't have to rely on advertising or things like that. What do you think, Mark? Do you like that idea?
I'm open to all opportunities. It's really interesting because right now everything's about voting and elections, and although like Fernando agreed, it just never ends. There's just always something going on. But one thing that the community might not be aware that's happening in March is the upcoming April voting cycle and the PR firm situation. So Fernando, can you just inform our listeners, viewers, what the situation is with the PR firm, just from the previous vote to what will be taking place in March, and then the upcoming voting cycle in April?
Yes. Current PR firm, Watchman PR, has a contract that expires at the end of April. So what we said in the last cycle is up until now, we had selected the firm and then put that to a vote. But then it's true that even if people was not happy, and many people are not happy with how we are working in this aspect of our job, you only had 2 options: defund it and then leave us without the firm, or fund it and then we keep using this firm that maybe you don't agree how they are working and you don't think they have enough quality or whatever. So and I acknowledge that's right, because defunding things is always very drastic. So what we've devised for this next cycle is we're going to put it to a vote. We're going to provide different options that will be different ways and lines of work, so the network can decide on how they want us to work in PR, or maybe they decide they don't want PR at all and then they don't approve any of those options. What we are doing right now is opening conversations with many firms, different types of firms. So with a very basic RFP, what we need, and basically, I mean, I'd love to have 10 PR firms working in different areas in the world, because most firms really have like a strong area where they have very good contacts with journalists, and in the others they don't have so good. But we don't have the budget at this time to really have many firms working. So because the media we are most interested right now is English speaking, because crypto moves in English. I mean, I'm Spanish speaking. I would love to the Spanish speaking media to be more important, but right now it isn't. And even though if our markets are many of them are Spanish speaking, the media everyone cares about are English speaking. So we are looking for a firm probably in the US, because we're talking crypto, we're talking finance, we're talking technology. All those are either usually New York or the Bay Area, but that's not a requisite. We could hire someone maybe in London, it depends. But we're talking with many firms, doing some screening, also seeing if they are open to put their own proposal to the network, because not everyone is going to be happy with that. Not everyone wants their fees discussed publicly. Not everyone wants their work discussed publicly and criticized and give a lot of explanations. We've had firms in the past that didn't want to work with us because of this. So what we want to do is filter down to a reduced number of firms, because we don't think, I mean, our job is to reduce options a little. We don't want to put 10 proposals in the network and then have masternodes go to the 10 proposals. That's not reasonable. So we're aiming at 2-3 different agencies that put their own proposal, and then masternodes can decide on each of them, and they will have different prices and different approaches. Watchman is going to run. They are the incumbent one, and they want to run. And then I'd like to have probably some other PR firm that is more crypto focused, because even though we want to go mass and we want to go mainstream, truth is crypto is still a very contained vertical. So there are firms that are specialized in this industry. They have their advantages and disadvantages. Watchman is a blockchain focused firm, and there are others. These firms, the problem you usually have with them is that they work with different blockchain projects. So it's difficult to manage the conflicts because they have many clients doing similar things. So it's a very delicate line to walk. And then I'd like another firm, at least, that it's more fintech, finance focused, and maybe not so much blockchain. This has the advantage that maybe you are the only blockchain play. And that's great, because anything related to that, they are going to channel your way. But the disadvantage is also that probably they are less connected in purely crypto outlets, but maybe they have better connections, CNN, I don't know. So it's two different things to worry about. But again, we are screening firms during March. Early April, we'll ask the selected ones. If someone else want to run, I mean, we can't avoid it. But we'll have these firms putting their own proposals at their own fees, whatever they think it's, whatever it says their fee, and have masternodes voting. We'll work with whoever comes out of this. And what we also would like to stress, and in the past we've probably not been very good at this, but hopefully with the firms interacting directly with the network, this will be achieved easier, this is a firm Dash Group is going to work with, but it's open to anyone that wants to push things. And I mean, we are here to help everyone if they want, like you guys do, and sometimes we work together on things. Anything we have is the networks. So
that becomes an interesting slippery slope, because at first, which by the way I think is great, because in the past I've noticed a lot of PR that has come out of Waxman has been Dash Core Group related milestones and not what's happening in the rest of the ecosystem. And of course, it's great to just have the PR firm work for the whole network. And as soon as I think, oh, that's great, then I start thinking there's going to be a dozen projects that are going to be dumping their press releases on them every single week saying, do ours next, do ours next. And it's like, oh no, like how, if it's open, if it's Dash Core Group is hiring this PR firm, as is the current setup, then it's relatively easy to work with and say, all right, well, they can do one newswire per month, or one this and that, and they have this so much bandwidth, and then you have a discussion, you come to consensus over what should be put out. But now if everyone's fighting to be like, me too, me too, me too, what do you think how is the best way of dealing with that and making sure only the ones that are really best get their actual PR treatment? Is there going to be a mechanism for figuring that out?
I mean, what I'm saying is this is something that I've offered people in the past, and we've done some releases for other projects or help them put out certain things. In the case, in case this works out, I mean, we will still be managing the PR firm, and I hope that, I mean, if people come, we'll try to advise them on what makes sense and what not. Maybe for a project, getting a merchant in a village somewhere, it's huge news. But here you have a PR professional that the network is paying and say, hey, this is not really big news. We should not be pushing this. Wait to have this or that or whatever. And we'll try to do that a bit. We'll see. We learn by doing. What I want to stress is we are always open to work with anyone and help tech system flourish, because we want the best for that, like most people in the network. So whatever we can work with other people around certain things, we're happy to do it.
So another question I saw in the live chat was, will one of the options be voting to bring PR in-house rather than engage with an external firm?
We are not going to have that option. I agree it's an option to consider, but at this time we're not thinking about it, because in this market situation we can't onboard more people. We simply can't afford it. We have this 60% limit that sometimes people say that's arbitrary. Then instead of having the network do a PR proposal, do whatever, and ask for a bit more, and you hire someone. But in current situation, increasing our headcount is dangerous. Also, just one person many times is not a replacement for a PR firm. In companies have worked in the past, we had an internal team, and then you work with a PR firm, because a PR firm brings you certain connections. If you are in a company, you don't have such a good connection sometimes with journalists, because if you have different clients, you are feeding that journalist with information and contacts from different things, and you are useful to them. If you are just in one project or company, you are not that useful. So it depends a lot. There are people who would prefer that. At this point, we are not considering it. In the future, I would love to have someone inside only focused on this, but we don't have it. We need to stress out the message that Dash core group is mostly a development organization. Something like 80% of the compensation budget or 70% of the compensation budget is for directly, I don't know the number, because with salary reductions and all that, but probably it's more close to 80% of the compensation budget goes to development and operations. And we would love to grow other areas too, because we think it makes sense to do certain things close to the developers, but development has priority right now. The most important thing is that, and we are not going to be increasing headcount in other areas anytime soon.
So have you had the chance to think about, so let's just say, for example, we have 3 PR firms competing in the April cycle. Would you advise them to put in for a 3-month proposal cycle, or would you like them also to do 1 month? Because it's going to take them a while, especially if they're new, to understand what Dash is, right? And it's going to take a lot of time to digest. So I'm not sure 1 month proposal would be enough really to see results or performance.
Most companies, when they get in, they want to do a 6-month contract. So they have some time to get to know each other. Sometimes the things that PR firm does take time to develop and bring in the results. So what we want is for them to decide what you want and explain how the system works, and then you decide. Probably they can't ask for 6 months fee in advance. They will need to be a multi-month proposal. So they need to accept the risk of getting defunded. They need to accept that they need to interact with the network, and they need to accept certain things. And yeah, maybe you get elected, you sign, and you have to and the network breaks the contract in 2 months. That's a risk. So you better start fast. But also, I hope that the network, if we get a new firm, will have some patience, because this doesn't happen from one day to the next one. But on the other hand, in the past, when we've changed PR firms, if we change, we see some small increase in a very short term in attention, because you are tapping a new network. Every firm has a network of contacts, and they partially overlap, but they are not the same. So if you get a new firm, you have fresh contacts that have not heard much about your project. So usually in the short term, you have like a small bug. Then it's when the day-to-day work starts, and you need them to really show how good they are.
So really time-wise, whoever is voted in next has an incredibly important task, because we've got Evolution and the Dash Pay app just around the corner lingering there. So whoever gets voted in is most likely really to be doing the launch of that as well, right? So we really want to make sure we get the right people in. So this is such an instrumental vote. So yeah, we want to make sure we get the best candidates possible.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is like the perfect time?
No pressure.
Well? Yeah, like, because I'm just saying, like, it's the right time. You know, you don't want to have an election, you know, the month we're launching Evolution and Dash Pay. This is actually could be perfect timing, really, to make a shift if we make a shift, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a very good time, because especially it's a very good time to make decisions. I mean, maybe the network will decide we're good like we are, and we keep what's around, or we like this other company and we start with them. I think they have some room to warm up before the important launches and all that. But also in the launches, not everything is the PR firm. Sometimes it's also in the client. I mean, you need to provide them with good people, good content, people who talk well with journalists. You need to follow up on the opportunities, and you need to provide exciting news. If you do nothing, no PR firm is going to save you from that. I mean, no PR firm will make a boring project exciting. I mean, they can improve a little, but in the end, it's on the client also, a lot of things. So I think the next few months are very good for the client. So we need a firm that will follow us in that path and help us launch this exciting new journey with Evolution and dApps. And that space is a really exciting thing. But there are many more things around Evolution. And also, I mean, things that are already happening. Chain locks is awesome, and deterministic Masternodes. And there are many things that are happening. It's not only what is coming, it's what's happening. All of the things we've been talking before. Our governance system is amazing. There are many other things they need to be working around, and we need to be working around too.
Right. This was kind of like the wild card. I didn't know if it was going to come up in the podcast or not. But for those that saw the podcast last week, we had Chuck Williams on, and we let him know about Dash Ventures, and we started talking about the summary call. And it was a very topical debate, actually, in the live chat. And then afterwards, in the after party, everyone was talking about it. Everyone had an opinion. And that was based on, we were talking about the profits of Dash Ventures being essentially burned, is in the terminology sense, but taken out of circulation, right? So profits, buying Dash on exchanges, and then taken out of circulation. Now, I was talking to Fernando before the podcast, and he actually had some more insight on this. So, Fernando, would you just share your opinion on this? Because those that just think it's like doom and gloom and just like, no, we shouldn't be burning the Dash, that's not the whole story, is it?
No, exactly. I think maybe some people misunderstood what we were proposing. The burning of Dash is the replacement for distributing coins to Masternode owners, because there's no way to do that without KYC, and that's a no for Masternode owners. So Dash Ventures can't send Dash out to the beneficiaries, which is Masternode owners or the network, or however you want to define that, because maybe it's not only Masternode owners, it's also the other holders. So because that's not possible, if they want to distribute something, what they do is they burn. But they don't need to distribute. Maybe they decide to reinvest. I mean, it's a company doesn't need to give out a dividend. Many companies don't give out a dividend. They keep the profits and they reinvest in something else. So it's not like they do an investment, it has some profit, we burned, and then we ask for money for the next investment. Maybe you keep that money and you do the next one with that. It's not a given. It's only a decision the managers do. If they don't see investment opportunities, I mean, when the company doesn't see new investment opportunities, they distribute a dividend. If they see, maybe they prefer to keep that money and invest. And that's the case with Dash Ventures. But yeah, it's a contentious thing, but we really looked into every option, and there was no way to distribute back to the network without a KYC process. And because that's impossible to implement, then burning is the only way possible.
It also depends on how the network views Dash Ventures. If people are just saying, oh, I'm going to try to like I'm going to put money in there to make as much instant reward for Dash as possible, where you'd say you have a bunch of different people working for Dash and you have some extra money and you just say, well, rather than hire this extra person, I'm going to invest in this company, make a gamble. Maybe it'll make money. And if it does make money, they'll use that to buy and then burn Dash. My Dash becomes more valuable. Some people might see it that way. Some people might, first off, like how far away is Dash Ventures from being created and finalized? Then how far is the Dash treasury from being big enough to actually start investing in things, have fun money again? And then how long are those investments from actually one of them being successful, right? You can invest in like 10 companies and one of them turns out well. Then how long far from there is the profit from that one company until that gets, we're talking like a decades out, possibly even. And then at that point, what are people going to be thinking about that? Are they going to think, oh, buy Dash and burn it? Or are they going to be thinking like, just so I could get an ROI on my personal Masternode investment or Dash investment? Or am I going to be thinking, yeah, well, that's already just extra money. Let's just keep reinvesting. And before you know it, you have like, everything is sponsored by Dash and everything is like being, well, not just sponsored, but like all these companies are being like reinvested in or bought, and then eventually you have a situation where like sort of like the digital currency group, same initials as Dash Core Group, oddly enough, you have kind of fingers in every pie. You got to own you could have a big stake in a newspaper and in an exchange and a whole bunch of different things, and eventually you just control the whole world, you know?
Yes, those are very important things to consider. First, Dash Ventures is around the corner. I know everything is finalized. There's announcements to be made very, very soon. But then the second thing you mentioned, when can we fund it? Because if they need to invest, they need funding. Possibly part of the network will say, well, we stop funding certain proposals, and then Dash Ventures does that funding, so we can put more money in there. But that's not going to be that easy because the budget is not that big. So funding them with a meaningful amount of money so they can start making investments, that will take some time. And then having successful businesses coming out of that give some profit, that's also a long way. And many of them will go bankrupt because VCs always look at these like, 10% of the portfolio will do like 95% of the return, and then you have like 70 or 60% that will go burst, and a small percentage and another percentage that will do okay. But they usually all the big carries and all that come from a very reduced number of investments. And in this case, I would expect something like that. And that's the reason, because for Dash Ventures, because a grant system is not good for that. If the chances of success are slim, then at least the return should be huge. So if something is difficult to do, Dash Ventures invest, and if it succeeds, it gets a big return. But that takes a lot of time because crypto is also a very long race, and businesses are a long race. So everything combined, this is a thing for the future and for many years to come.
It's also interesting, the investment strategy and sponsorship strategy of where a lot of people are thinking, for example, a lot of times during the giant bull run, they're like, let's throw tons of money at, airplanes, at MMA fighters, at Ben Swan, at whoever who can just get us the biggest splash possible. And then now that the markets are tighter, first off, none of that happens. But also people are starting to think that was stupid back then. And it might be kind of somewhere in between there. It might be you want to fund your essential operations. You want to fund the things that build your product and make it better. But if you notice, like all these large corporations are always sponsoring stuff for a lot of money because the margins are very small. I can just throw like a 0.5% of revenue and fund like an entire like sporting event or something like that, or name a whole thing after us. And just at that point, now that you've already spent all the money on everything else, it's like, that just little bit of money there doesn't really matter, which is huge. Whereas if you have like a coin like Dash today, trying to spend like $300,000 a month on these giant sponsorships or putting a logo on someone's shorts while they punch each other, it's just, without the rest, that's complete waste. But when it's like a 10 million plus treasury, and Dash Ventures might be the same thing if you think about it. Some people,
There's one thing you mentioned there, that even those big organizations, when they throw a 0.5 percentage point into sponsoring a Formula One team, it's just 0.5%. Let's try it. They measure. I mean, they know what they're doing. Their marketing teams try to measure everything. There are very bad sponsors up there, and sometimes it's because the owner of the company likes whatever sport. I've seen terrible sponsorships. I mean, companies who are very local sponsoring global events, and I mean, you are wasting 95% of your impacts, and you are paying for them. But most organizations know what they are doing with their budget, and at least try to optimize that. Things they have huge budgets, so we can't be competing with that. That's a fact. I mean, because also people don't react to sponsorships and advertisement on just one impact. People need to be impacted repeatedly to take action, and for that you need a lot of long campaigns. You need then for them to be able to react to that. If you want people to use crypto, they need to have an easy way to get into crypto. It doesn't make sense to get them that thought in their head if then they can't access crypto. Then you've wasted your money. So advertising is not just doing the things.
That was one of the biggest things that annoyed me, or there's nothing you could do about it back then, but people were like, oh, Dash, awesome. Dash is like, just get all this, and then like, what do we do now? Dash.org, and then they go there like, all right, what's for dinner? And then they just it's completely useless. And now we have a Dash.org that's very useful, to where you can say start using Dash today, Dash.org, and then they go there and they're like, all right, I'm a person, here's what I have to do, okay, yay, and then they start using it. It's a lot. I mean, obviously I'm oversimplifying.
Yeah.
It's a much trickier problem than that, but it's still
the thing is, but even if, I mean, you can be impacting people in a country with no on-ramps, so they can't buy crypto. So why do it? I mean, you need to have everything prepared around. When soap company does advertising, they do it in areas where they know people need soap and can access their brand, and there are supermarkets and all this. So you need to have everything.
So they don't
around
advertise very much in France, then, right?
I never talk about neighbors.
So Fernando, so with regard to the vote for Dash Ventures, how far out do you see that? Do you think it's going to be like a few months, or is it going to be like 3-4 months? How far away is it going to be?
It's a low number of months. I can't give you a number, but it's going to be, I think, in spring.
Yeah.
Before or after evolution?
For dates on development, I'll defer to Bob or Liz. I'll just repeat what you can see in the roadmap in the website, dash.org/roadmap.
Excellent. That media training really kicked in really well then.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, and to be honest, a lot of it is pretty it's pretty good that we don't know ahead of time for some of these sorts of things, because honestly, doing the job right requires a lot of unforeseen things. And can you imagine if, like, say Evan's talking about evolution in late 2015 at Bitcoin Wednesday, and then fast forward to the full public release of version 1.0. And if everyone got excited that night about evolution, then was like, that's when it's coming out. I don't know. That's a little hard. I mean, a lot of people might be like, who by the way are still here through that whole cycle. A lot of people, if they knew it then, might not have been. It's just sort of like, hey, if you know what it feels like to give birth, do you want a child? A lot of people like, No, but sometimes you have to not know and just have to deal with it at the time.
Possibly, and also the vision has changed and new things came up. The industry has changed. This is an industry that changes by the day, and new needs have arrived along the way. New things we've added to the protocol that have come before evolution, like chain locks. In the end, it's coming sooner, and
by the way,
it was only invented recently.
That's something that I really, because I'm going to push hard, especially to looking at you, CoinDesk, at all like the crypto news outlets when Chainlocks comes out. Chainlocks is basically collateralized mining, or it's the replacement for, or for Evan's great idea, which essentially Chainlocks are several years early, if you think about it. And so that the opponents was evolutions late and stuff, whatever. We should talk about that when that comes out. We should talk about the whole world, that this is a problem that Dash had somewhere long-term on the roadmap to guarantee against 51% tax, whatever. Here today, it's out today. Dash Core team, Dash Core group, developer arm delivering years ahead of schedule. How awesome is that?
But
and more elegantly.
Before that discussion, there's one that we probably should be having more, because many of the people who criticize this and part of the industry doesn't accept that masternodes in general are a good solution to anything. They believe it's centralized and whatever. So anything that relies on masternodes, they discard from the get-go. So we need to be able to explain that masternodes, how we use them with quorums, selected randomly among a huge class, all that makes it much more decentralized than any other solution other projects have come up with. But people say, "Oh, Masternode, that's centralized, whatever." I discard.
Yeah, and honestly, it's a really
talk about Masternodes.
It's a really hard thing to hit. I mean, I was actually talking to someone last night who's like a cook in some major chain restaurant around here, who's like into crypto, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I use Dash because it's all around here. Because New Hampshire is this Dash Central Station, right? It's all." But he says, I use it because around here I'm still kind of worried about. I think it's too centralized because of masternodes. I didn't have time to just explain to him like how completely ridiculous that argument is, because I don't think it was his argument. It just he heard, it's just central. It's a misunderstanding. But we have a lot of education work to do. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that because that's the cornerstone of everything Dash does. The masternodes. I mean, all we do relies on them. So we need to be able to explain that. And I think we've done that a lot, but people don't really want to hear. But we need to keep pounding that, because if not, it doesn't matter what we build on top of masternodes. If people don't accept masternodes are great, you can invent whatever on top of them, because they are on top of masternodes. They will say, this centralization, everyone has 1 million coins.
Yeah. Can we somehow wait until evolution's out and going before we start that messaging war? Because I kind of like that. For example, from my perspective, Bitcoin Cash is doing a lot of the same things Dash is doing, from massive on-chain scaling to adding some extra coin mixing privacy in some of their wallets to anti-51% attack solution, but trying to basically do everything Dash does without masternodes. Just like we won't do masternodes because that's not what we do. I kind of like that, because I think it's a giant competitive disadvantage to not have masternodes, not be built on a robust masternode network. And so I kind of like that, like sneak attack of like surprise.
Yeah, but I think that, I mean, people who really look into it, and I think the Bitcoin Cash people know all this. I mean, it's not a secret. Masternodes are not a secret.
But also, it's a huge cost for them, right? Can you imagine if they started to make masternodes today? It's like, oh gosh.
It's not easy to do that. I mean, it's not easy to change your incentive, the incentive structure of your network. Tell the miners that they are not going to be getting the full block reward. We were able to do that because it was very early on, and miners were people that were really experimenting. But now mining is a huge business, so changing the reward structure is a huge deal. So I don't think any of the top projects can go from masternode-less to masternode project with ease. I think they break the project. It's certain basics of each project can be changed, and adding masternode I think it's something you need to do from the very early on, or if not from the start. Adding them along the way, it's not feasible, in my opinion.
And that's one thing I like about, you compare, for example, say Dash to a Litecoin or something like that, which Dash did a lot. And like a lot of people complain about, oh, the branding changes. Oh, it was called, there was a Instamine. Oh, there was 84 million coins going to be created. Now they change it to like 19 million. Oh, they changed this. Oh, they changed that. Well, when no one's using it, no one's betting their life on this. You're just like, let's try it. Let's figure out what happens. And then from masternodes plus governance plus privacy plus the Dash name rebrand, it's just like now you just build something. Now you just like figure it all out and you just like go steady on that. That's the winning combination. It's going to work long term. You keep innovating on that, but you get your house in order ahead of time. It's just sort of like, you don't marry the first person you meet. You don't just like meet them. Oh, you like me, let's make it permanent. It's like, no, you figure out what you like and what you don't like, and eventually you're like, all right, this is something we can be solid on and just lock that in for long term. Of course, still evolving along the way, but still. So yes, I'm very grateful that Dash was a shit show in the beginning.
Well, actually, I think the best person to ask about that is actually Fernando, because Fernando's been there from the beginning. Like he's been further. He's been involved in Dash since the beginning, like further back than my hairline, right? You were there in 2014, right? I remember you.
I was in 2014, but not from the beginning.
Right.
I started getting involved probably sometime in February, March, so very early on, but not the real beginning. I was dabbling with different projects and researching certain different things. So I think it was like, spring 2014, I got really involved. I contacted Evan. We started discussing certain things and started having fun. It was open source. It was a hobby that went out of control. But yeah, 2014, not the real start, but almost. So
yeah, almost. Yeah, and you was one of the first foundation members, right?
Yeah, we created that. I think it was 2014.
Yeah, it's pretty early on. Yeah, interesting. So, are you happy where Dash is today? Like, because I mean, are you interested in any other cryptocurrencies at all? Like, without revealing your details, I don't think you have the time to look at other crypto projects personally. But I mean, I have to ask.
Look very much in detail, at least.
Dash has changed a lot over the years in the vision, and it's like different chapters, different phases. Like in 2018, we brought on so many new developers as well. And it's like new chapter. And I'm sure once the Dash Pay app is here and Evolution's here, Dash is gonna feel like it's new again. There's another paradigm shift. So, what's your journey been in this? And like, are you still committed? Is Dash today what you thought it was gonna be?
No, I don't think anyone in 2014 could foresee what's happened in the last few years. But I'm happy where we are. I mean, most people in crypto started like very different ways, but you start dabbling in it, you check it, you get interested, you get deeper and whatever. So it's very difficult to really say. I predicted the future. I mean, if I had seen where these had gone, probably I'd made other decisions. I would have sold everything I had in 2014. I didn't. So be it. I'm happy with where it is. I'm not happy with everything. I wish we had been able to gain more adoption in certain things, or see certain things in advance that happened, or we didn't realize that certain things were going to happen. I mean, in hindsight, it's very easy to question decisions you've made in the past. But in general, I think most of the decisions that have been made around the project made sense with the information available at that time. Yeah, of course, I would have, if I could go to the past now, I would expedite the legal work we did to get Dashcore group created and bank accounts and the trust and everything, and do that in 2016 and give more priority to that, or early 2017, so we could have built a huge buffer and now we would be much better funded. Things like that, of course, but I mean, that's easy to say from the future. I mean, managing the past and trading the past is extremely easy. But I mean, I think we are good. Not everything is good. We've made things that should have been made. We have not taken opportunities we should have taken. But I think every project, I mean, if you manage everything perfect, then I mean, it's impossible.
What is it about Dash that you love, though? Because you started off as a volunteer. You say this was like a hobby that went out of control. So then it must. What's compelling you to do this? Because, you know, I know the hours we work, and it's crazy. And like the only explanation is that you love the project, right? So what is it that what keeps you here? Because we're back every single year doing this. So like, what is keeping you here doing this? Like, what what gets you going?
I'll answer that, but then you need to answer too.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of things. First one is the idea. I mean, working on creating new money is such a huge thing. Being able to have some impact and input in how that happens, it's huge. Money moves the world, but it's not perfect. And being able to work on something that may change that, the fulfillment it provides me, it's much bigger than any other thing. Then the second thing is the people I've known along the way, both in the community, other projects around, even in crypto, not just in Dash, because I do keep an eye on other projects. I talk with people. I don't have the time to research every project and be proficient in everyone, because no one has, and I would love to. But the people I've known along the way, the people I work with, the people I interact with on a daily basis, it's just amazing. I've known extremely smart people with whom I love to talk and discuss and everything. So the combination of those two things have made that committing more and more time and making certain sacrifices sometimes made sense. In terms of hours, it doesn't really matter, because I've always been very intense and put a lot of time to everything I do. So that's not a real difference. But putting other things aside and allocating a bigger percentage of my life to that, it's basically because the overall vision and the people. Now your turn.
Oh God.
And you else.
Well, let me, for my part, answer a little bit, because Mark has more time to think about the smartest thing to say, which to sort of tie in with when you say you regret of like not enough adoption in between, like, and I always paid attention to Dash on the outside, but I thought it was like a privacy coin because, I just read the nonsense people print. And I kind of got coerced into Dash because of my very well-known story of living off of Bitcoin. And then in late 2016, it stopped working. And a lot of people think it stopped working late 2017, but like for actual like peer-to-peer cash, if anyone was actually using that and not just occasionally spending it because they say they did, anyone who wasn't a phony was done with it in 2016. And a bunch of us in the local community, and some people even listening to this podcast right now were there present, just said, all right, Bitcoin doesn't work anymore, what else can we use? And it was sort of like, there's a couple people saying, oh, what about Monero? But there was no mobile wallets then. And then it was mostly down to Ethereum and Dash. And of course, Ethereum shortly ran into scaling problems and was never intended for money anyways. So pretty much New Hampshire went to Dash and is there today. And pretty much, I mean, if you look at AnyPay's merchant statistics, all our transactions, it's very Dash heavy. And that sort of happened because of that. And there's that long year from when Dash had that strike zone opportunity to when Bitcoin Cash existed as like a big competitor, and then split off into another Bitcoin Cash, i.e. Bitcoin SV, and then all that stuff. And there's that year that Dash could have gotten in there. And also halfway into that year, like Litecoin started to like show signs of life again after it had been abandoned. And then just that would be another thing. I feel like, oh, missed opportunities. So anyway, why I care so much is because I want to live free. I've always wanted to live free. I want to be free and better off. And I want the world to be free and better off. And I think that this is the quickest, best way of doing this that I can have any kind of say in. And that's really the reason I'm in here.
Wow. I'm still laughing at the comment in the live chat that says
Uh-oh.
Mark does it for Spank Chain.
But Spank Chain isn't even Dash, so hey.
Yeah.
In that case, Mark, you're pretty stupid because this is working for Dash is the wrong way to get into that spanking goodness.
Wowzers. I think it's interesting. Like, I think Joel's reasoning is perfect because he was all about use case. What is actually functions best as digital cash? If I'm going to actually live off cryptocurrency, I want to be financially independent. I want to take back control and become my own bank. What is the best cryptocurrency project out there to do that? And the proof was in the pudding. Joel took the test drive. He tried things out, and Dash ended up being the best solution out there.
Or more importantly, the only solution at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, it would have been very expensive, right? So you almost had no other choice. Now, for me, I didn't know Dash was going to take this pathway, right? And initially, I didn't know Dash was going to be what it was today. I think it was the dark send functionality that really got everyone going. Masternodes didn't really start until 2015, right? So although the self-funding, self-governing mechanism protocol, in the protocol itself is absolutely game-changing, and I still think, we were the pioneers and we're still leading from the front. Ultimately, what's kept me in Dash is the community itself, most importantly, but also the belief in the development team. I feel like we've been most consistent in our message, and the team as well has been solid throughout. Even people that were in Bitcoin from the beginning, prior to Dash's existence, a lot of them have moved on to forks of Bitcoin and elsewhere. A lot of people in Dash came from Bitcoin. I know I did, right? I remember Bitcoin.
Yeah, I know.
So
I did.
And my confidence has been unshaken, hence stay Dashy. I'm 100% Dash. And I was a big proponent of end the Fed, like most people. So I wanted to align myself with the project that would be the best alternative currency out there, that would help people to not only have to question what is the Ponzi scheme of fractional reserve central banking, but just saying well, look, if you want to be a true payment solution, you have to be better than the solution you're trying to replace. Otherwise, you're obsolete from the beginning. And I think Dashy's message in what it wants to deliver has been the most consistent. We want to be digital cash. It's in the name. And I feel in terms of actually being used as a store of value, medium of exchange, and a unit of count, Dash ticks all those boxes. And the fact that it's a community-led project that's not dependent on just personalities or leaders that can just change their mind, that we actually, as a community, control our own destiny, is just the biggest thing ever. And I still, to this day, don't think we get the true credit that we deserve. But I know that if we stay true to the cause and we just focus on usability, user friendliness, and actually the payment side of it itself, we will be victorious in the end. How was that?
Sounds good.
Mark Mason for Trust Protector.
This podcast has gone way over hours. So I think 1 hour 52. So I apologize, Fernando. I said 1 hour, 1.5 hours. So we've gone way over time, but
it's fine.
But yeah, it's just so good. And I think it's good for the community to, see our side and just see our personalities and everything as well. And I do agree. It's really weird when I talk to my friends and family outside Dash, in the beginning they felt, and some of them still feel like I'm in some kind of cult. And I talk to people like avatars and aliases. I've never seen their face. Some I don't even know their real names. Yeah, I've had these relationships we're talking about on proposals and stuff for years now. Yeah. I talk to most of them, my school friends and stuff and everything, and I can't explain that relationship. It's weird, isn't it? It's hard to explain.
There's people I've talked for years, spent countless hours discussing with, and as you say, you don't know even their real name, and some of them I consider very close, and that's weird. But I mean, when I was starting into this and putting time that I didn't really have into this, sometimes I would wake up on a Saturday at 7 a.m. and people were like, "You're crazy. Why are you putting all the time you have into this?" And I was like, "Well, you are waking up at 7 a.m. to go play golf and chase small balls through a field with a stick. and that's
I like that
acceptable. And
description.
I'm going into the internet to create magic money with cool people. I mean,
Yeah, it's way better.
how can you question? This is much better.
It is funny because you got people always use that term at least in the US sometimes, of having a work wife or a work husband, like some coworker you like spend almost more time with than your actual spouse. And so sometimes you got to have a Dash wife for that Dash life. Am I right?
Wow.
that was weird.
Yeah, that was,
Yes.
could have gone to the weird side of YouTube on that one. So, yeah, it's weird but at the same time, we've come so far. And sorry, I've gone out of focus. But yeah, I feel like with Dash, we've only got one opportunity to get this right. So I agree with Fernando. People say we're crazy working the weekends in like crazy hours, but we've got one chance at this, one opportunity. We're making monetary history right now. We're not going to get a chance at this again. So I want to make sure we do it right. And I want to align myself with the project that I think has the best chance of doing that. You know, if we're truly going to help people in the world, the underbanked and the unbanked of the world, we need to have the right solution. Almost half of the world is unbanked right now, which is crazy to think about. And it's a staggering percentage, even in the United States, of people that don't have bank accounts as well, which I can't remember the number off the top of my head now, but that's just crazy. But it seems the solution is to actually unbank the banked. That is the solution, actually taking back control. It's going to take a lot of education to teach people to be financially responsible. But, you know, that's what we need to get to. And that is the ultimate financial freedom, financial independence that we need to give to people. And once you get a taste of it and you've got that and you're in full control of your destiny and your funds, you can't give that back to people. And the trick that we have now is that where people have become dependent and used to using third-party private banks, retail banks, that they're used to giving some kind of insurance almost for using that. But really, you have restrictions and limitations when you hand over your money to banks, right? Because then, you know, from how much you can withdraw, the times, everything else, the fees. So really, there's an educational aspect. So, but with Dash, I feel with the Dash Pay app and evolution and hopefully an evolving DApp marketplace, Dash can be that solution that we all desperately need. And then we won't even need to educate people, like when they use search engines, like how do things work behind the scenes. It will just work. It will be intuitive. And that's the ultimate goal. And I really feel like Dash is the only project right now that can make that happen. Sorry, did I kill it? I killed the conversation.
Well, no, we're just like, we're running up on the Christmas special timing.
Yeah.
So what's the Nando special? What better that's?
Well, it's a special occasion. Fernando's here. So
fun.
So
that is special. I come a lot. I'm almost the fourth amigo.
Yeah,
of course. Well, that's the thing is, unfortunately, by not having Brian here, he's always the one's like, we gotta wrap it up, and like we missed our cue, so we just kept going.
Yeah, eventually, like 90 minutes already, guys.
Yeah, eventually, like without him in the chat, eventually we'd be like a 6-7 hour long thing, and it would just be the podcast until like the sun comes up again.
Yeah.
This is just like what the after party's like. So sometimes it can go on for like 8-10 hours. It's crazy.
And some lunatics booted up the next day too.
Yeah.
Which might be a good time to talk about that then, right? Good segue opportunity.
Yes, I think so. Let's go for that.
Yeah. So if you like this podcast, which is pretty cool, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all the usual stuff on YouTube. But then this comes out on audio only version as well, which should be up and running. Mark puts the links in on the Saturday recap post of the podcast. So go there if you're one of those audio only people listening at the gym or wherever else you are. No judgment. And as always, we do this thing called the after party, where we just continue on like this with 10 at a time. Again, sometimes 8 hours, sometimes it gets booted up the next day, whatever you animals want to do. So in order to get there, you have to go to the Dash Talk Discord, which is staydashy.com. That'll get you in. And then you just start asking around, hey, how can I get into the after party? Where's the after party at? And then, you get in there. So that's my piece.
Excellent. Well, that was the Dash podcast episode 94. Thank you, Fernando, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, if you're watching this on YouTube and you like the video, Fernando, what should they do?
Share it, like it,
exactly.
subscribe, everything.
Smash for Dash.
Press
always.
that like button, smash for Dash. And and make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We look forward to your comments as always, and spread the word, right? Sharing is caring. So it's Friday night over here. I hope all of you have a fantastic weekend. Once again, thank you to Fernando for coming on. And if you haven't checked out the Dash.org website, do it now. Dash.org, really good, really good. Check it out, share it as well. Fantastic. But anyway, as always, stay positive, stay humble, but most importantly, stay dashy. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Peace.